Imagine you are walking across the sun-baked cobblestones of the Roman Forum. The air is thick with the scents of spice, sweat, and freshly baked bread. Traders shout from their stalls, sandals slap against stone, and somewhere nearby, a lute strums a haunting tune. It's the year 67 AD, a time when Rome pulsates with grandiosity, danger, and secrets whispered behind marble pillars. Amidst the crowd, a figure appears, tall, proud, cloaked in purple and gold, the very colors of power. Emperor Nero strides through the marketplace, his sharp eyes scanning the faces around him, one hand resting possessively on the arm of a young person by his side. The person's delicate features and soft, silk-draped gown contrast strikingly with the brutal world that surrounds them. To the many watching, whispers ripple like a cold wind. "That is no woman," they say. "That is a boy, forced into a fate darker than death itself." This young man is Sporus, once a slave, now the center of a twisted imperial tale of grief, obsession, and unimaginable cruelty. But how did a boy come to be entangled in the desires of one of history's most infamous emperors? And why would Nero choose to remake someone else's body and identity not only as a living memory of a lost love, but as a symbol of horrific power? If you love uncovering hidden truths of history, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this. Before we dive into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, please drop a comment below to let me know where you're listening from. It's amazing to think that we're exploring these ancient tales together, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. Let's rewind. When Nero took the throne at just 16, there was hope. His youthful charm and promises hinted at a golden era for Rome. Taxes fell. Games and spectacles brought joy to the city. For a time, Nero seemed less a tyrant and more a protector of the people. But beneath the facade, shadows crept into his mind. Absolute power is a strange master. It isolates. It consumes. And for Nero, it twisted love into obsession, transforming the boundaries between life and death, between human dignity and monstrous control. At the heart of this descent was a woman, Poppaea Sabina. Poppaea was not merely a beauty to behold. She was a tempest, brilliant, ambitious, unyielding. Where Nero once had the cold marriage of political convenience with Octavia, Poppaea was everything she was not: alive, commanding, intoxicating. Their affair began like many others in the imperial court, but quickly turned to obsession. Nero's love, however, carried a poison well hidden beneath its extravagance. Imagine the swing from rapturous gifts, jewels glowing like captured stars, silks whispering like water, as fiercely as a cage tightened. Guards shadowed Poppaea's every step, trust turned to surveillance. The emperor's adoration morphed into possession. Every glance toward another man sparked rage, every word spoke of dominance. And then came the fracture. Nero divorced Octavia, his lawful wife, ignoring the murmurs of scandal and outrage that spread like wildfire across Rome. He made his intentions clear through opulent displays, extravagant ceremonies, and a public marriage to Poppaea. The city watched, some in awe, others with dread. Yet, the woman who once commanded him proved too fierce to bend completely. In moments of conflict, she spoke truth to power, grabbing at the strings of his unraveling mind. Then came the day that altered everything. One afternoon, a domestic dispute spiraled beyond control. Accounts are fragmented, but the result is clear and brutal. Poppaea, pregnant with what was to be Nero's heir, fell victim to his uncontrollable fury. Some historians suggest a single violent blow to her abdomen. Others speak of a sustained attack. The anguish she bore stole her breath, and within hours, she was dead. Nero's reaction was a tragic spectacle, desperation mixed with denial. He refused cremation, opting to embalm her body, a ritual reserved for gods and legends. He spoke to her as if she were still alive, filling palaces with an eerie silence punctuated by his grief. The court was thrust into an impossible role forced to sustain illusions of a living empress. The emptiness of her favored seat at banquets was a haunting reminder of loss. And then, without warning, Nero's broken gaze fell on Sporus, a young man whose life until then had been marked by the privileges and dangers of imperial servitude. Sporus was strikingly similar to Poppaea in ways that defied cruel coincidence. especially in the eyes and the delicate contours of his face. In Nero's shattered mind, Sporus was a chance for resurrection, a way to undo what death had cruelly taken away. Here begins the darkest chapter, a forced transformation of body, soul, and identity. The emperor did not simply ask Sporus to dress as a woman. He demanded a complete and irreversible change. Physicians were ordered to perform dangerous surgeries aimed at modifying Sporus's body to resemble Poppaea's femininity. Imagine the agony hidden behind the palace walls, crude tools, the sting of infection, the searing pain of loss not only of flesh but of self. The surgical procedures were primitive and deadly, a torture masked as transformation. Sporus's life became a performance in permanence, a daily ritual of painful reinvention. He was taught to walk, to speak, to behave in ways deeply foreign to his nature, all under the watchful eye of an emperor who saw not a human, but a living statue of grief. Sporus's transformation was not a secret hidden away. Far from it. The young man stepped into a role drenched in imperial gravity and spectacle. His body altered, his identity rewritten. Sporus was now publicly recognized as Sabina, named after Poppaea Sabina, the woman he was forced to replace. Imagine the overwhelming sensation of waking each day to a world that no longer reflects who you are, your every movement expected to be perfect, your appearance scrutinized by those who hold life and death in their hands. Embalmed memories of the dead empress surrounded him. Jewels that once sparkled on Poppaea's fingers now worn on his own. Gowns crafted to mask remaining traces of his past and emphasize the delicate femininity imposed upon him. Every detail was vital. Seamstresses tailored dresses that flowed like whispers, hiding muscle where softness was expected. Makeup artists painted his face, coaching him to soften his sharp features, teaching him the subtle art of feminilitas, that graceful mannerism that was both armor and trap. His hair, once simply cut, was now curled and styled in elaborate fashion, held in place by pins and ornaments that weighed down his head like quiet chains. Yet it was not just physical transformation. Sporus was drilled daily in posture and speech. Tutors taught him how to tilt his head, how to fold his hands with precision, how to glide rather than strut. Imagine the exhausting internal struggle, mastering a voice to sound higher, softer, each syllable foreign and painstakingly sculpted. Every false smile, every measured laugh was another act, another piece of the identity stripped away. The performance was relentless. Outside the palace walls, Roman society was dazzled and perplexed. To see the emperor parading his empress, a young man surgically and socially transformed, was already strange enough. But those closest to Nero felt the tension. This was no loving marriage. It was a haunting illusion wrought from grief and absolute control. And then, in the spring of 67 AD, came a spectacle unlike anything Rome had witnessed before, the imperial wedding. Set in the grandest hall of the palace, under ceilings dripping with silk and blossoms, the ceremony was lavish beyond measure. Thousands of oil lamps flickered, casting trembling shadows over gathered nobles and emissaries. Musicians played songs old as mythology, their notes mingling with murmurs of disbelief and fascination. Guests wore smiles rehearsed for appearances, echoing joy they did not feel. They exchanged gifts shimmering with gems from distant lands, gifts that spoke of power, desperation, and denial. But behind the grandeur was an unbearable truth. Nero, the most powerful man in the world, was marrying a teenage boy whose body had been forcibly changed to mirror the dead woman he could not let go of. The rituals followed script without deviation, vows spoken with hollow sincerity, hands joined under godly eyes, sacred bread shared. Sporus did not stand merely as a symbol of imperial excess, but as a living testimony to the terrifying reach of a ruler's grief twisted into dominance. After the wedding, Sporus took up the role expected of an empress. He was given quarters within the palace that had once belonged to Poppaea, servants at his beck and call, and endless riches flowing from the imperial treasury. And yet, no amount of luxury could fill the void left by the erasure of his true self. Each public appearance was a high-stakes performance. He sat beside Nero at banquets and ceremonies, his every gesture scrutinized, his presence demanded as proof of the emperor's defiance of death. Sporus learned to anticipate Nero's moods. A wrong look or slip in behavior could mean swift and fatal consequences. These were not just roles played in public. Nero truly believed that Sporus was his resurrected Poppaea, a walking, breathing echo of what he lost. In private, Nero spoke to him as he had to his wife, expecting responses as if memories were shared. Imagine the crushing weight on Sporus, forced to live behind a mask so elaborate it gradually consumed him from within. Ancient sources, though sparse, hint at the deepening melancholy beneath the surface. While he became an expert performer, Sporus grew withdrawn, haunted by the dissonance between the person he was and the role he was forced to play. The psychological toll must have been unbearable. To be trapped in a gilded cage, dressed in silks that disguised your pain, coached to laugh at memories not your own, and forced to abandon any notion of self. For over 2 years, this was Sporus's grim reality. But the final blow was yet to come. In 68 AD, the mighty empire that Nero once ruled was crumbling beneath him. Rebellions surged across distant provinces, and the very Senate he had scorned declared him a public enemy. As his enemies closed in, Nero fled Rome, his footsteps heavy with the weight of a fallen king. By June, the end came swiftly. Cornered in a secluded villa outside the city, Nero took his own life. A final, tragic act that ended a reign marked by brilliance and brutality. But what became of Sporus, the living shadow of Nero's lost love, once forced into a cruel transformation to fit a broken emperor's obsession? With Nero's death, Sporus was plunged into a new kind of turmoil. No longer shielded by imperial power, he became a vulnerable prize in the chaotic scramble for Rome's battered throne. First, a powerful Praetorian prefect named Nymphidius Sabinus took him under his control, continuing to treat him as a wife, still calling him Poppaea. When Nymphidius himself was killed by his soldiers, Sporus was passed on like a token to the next in line, Otho, emperor during the frantic Year of the Four Emperors. As bitter irony would have it, Otho had previously been married to the very woman Sporus had been forced to replace. Yet the tragic odyssey did not end there. Vitellius, who briefly held the imperial throne after Otho, intensified Sporus's suffering. The new emperor cruelly forced Sporus into public spectacles, humiliations crafted for the amusement of the Roman crowds. Among the most degrading was a gladiatorial reenactment depicting mythological violence, designed to mock and demean the young man who had already endured so much. Faced with this ultimate violation, the young man who had lost everything, family, identity, autonomy, made a choice. In 69 AD, probably no older than 20, Sporus took control of his fate in the only way left to him, by ending his life. His death was both tragedy and resistance, a refusal to endure further exploitation, a reclaiming of agency denied to him for so long. Sporus' story is not merely a sordid footnote in imperial history. It stands as a profound reminder of the human cost behind the opulence and cruelty of absolute power. It challenges us to look beyond the tales of emperors and intrigue to see the lives broken, the voices silenced, and the resilience hidden beneath. And maybe, in remembering Sporus, in honoring his painful journey, we find a reflection of our own need to confront cruelty wherever it arises, whether in the gilded halls of empires past or the complexities of our modern world. Their story echoes across the ages, a cautionary tale of power unchecked, of identity erased, and of a spirit that, even in darkness, sought to reclaim dignity. Thank you for joining me on this journey into history's shadows. If you found this story compelling, consider sharing it, so that voices like Sporus's, silenced for centuries, can finally be heard and remembered.